Welcome to the deep dive. We've pulled together a whole stack of sources today, and honestly, they paint a pretty chaotic picture of global volatility.
Yeah, it's a lot. We're covering everything from massive drone warfare, almost industrialized scale, to a really stunning political collapse in France, right in the heart of the EU.
And escalating military ops in the Caribbean, too. It's a lot to track.
It really is. It's an overwhelming amount of conflicting claims, different crises popping up. So our mission today is to try and give you a clear structure for all this.
Right. We want to distill the kind of strategic meaning behind just the sheer volume of attacks you're seeing reported.
Exactly. And analyze the critical financial and political fallout from that instability in France, and also outline this, well, frankly, dangerous new phase of the anti-drug campaign near Venezuela.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We really have to start with the conflict in Europe because the scale of air warfare, it's just changing dramatically.
It is. You saw Ukrainian authorities reporting another just brutal overnight. Russia apparently launched a staggering 116 drones.
116. And Ukraine claims they shot down 83.
Yeah, 83, which, sounds like a high interception rate, and it is, but that still leaves 33 drones that got through.
33 that successfully evaded defenses. And those hits weren't trivial, right? They struck targets across 7 different locations.
7 locations, yeah,
Like-
including critical infrastructure and the immediate human cost just from those drone strikes.
It's awful. 5 civilians reported dead, 22 injured. Zaporizhia was hit hardest, it seems. 1 dead, 11 injured there.
That's right. And also significant damage reported in Kharkiv and Kherson homes, civilian buildings, just devastating.
But here's something you pointed out that's crucial. The drone numbers, even at 116, they don't tell the whole story of the violence.
Not even close. The governor of Zaporizhia, Ivan Fedorov, he reported that across his region alone, Russian forces launched a total of 762 attacks.
762 in 24 hours.
In a single 24-hour period, against 17 cities. That number, 762, that gives you the real gauge of the intensity. It's relentless, localized violence, mostly shelling, artillery. It far outweighs the drone totals you hear about.
Okay, so that's the Ukrainian side reporting intense, widespread attacks. Now, let's pivot to the Russian claims, because the numbers there, they seem almost divorced from reality.
You mean the drone defense claims?
Yeah.
The Russian Ministry of Defense is claiming its air defenses shot down 251 Ukrainian drones overnight.
251. I mean,
Yeah.
How seriously can we take that number? They listed targets everywhere: Crimea, Belgorod, Kursk, even Moscow, plus over the Black Sea and Sea of Azov.
Exactly. 251 is it's a massive number. It immediately raises questions about accuracy. Is it plausible? Maybe not, but it serves a purpose.
Right. Given this huge difference in numbers, how should you, listening to this, even process these claims? It feels like pure information warfare from both sides.
That's a really important point. You absolutely have to see these extreme numbers, both the Ukrainian interception rates and the Russian shoot-down claims, partly as psychological warfare tools.
Aimed at who? Their own people.
Their own people, yes, but also international partners. So the key strategic insight maybe isn't in the total number they claim shot down, but in what they claim they successfully hit on the other side.
Okay, so what are the Russians claiming they did hit successfully beyond just defending?
Well, separately from the defense numbers, you have the head of their East Group press center, Alexei Yakov. He claimed Russian forces hit Ukrainian command and control targets. Specifically, 3 Starlink communication stations and 14 Ukrainian drone control points, plus a Kozak armored vehicle and 8 cars destroyed.
Hitting Starlink stations. If that's confirmed, that's a major escalation in trying to paralyze Ukraine's battlefield communication, right?
Absolutely. That would be a significant tactical blow. So that's the kind of claim you watch closely, even amidst the noise of the big numbers.
Right, and this points to where the strategic focus seems to be really shifting, striking critical infrastructure, both civilian and military, deep inside enemy territory.
And we have concrete evidence of that happening inside Russia, confirmed by Russian sources themselves.
You mean the Belgorod situation?
Exactly. The governor there, Vyacheslav Gladkov, he confirmed Ukrainian shelling damaged energy infrastructure in his region. It caused a major power outage.
And the impact wasn't small. He said power was restored to 34,000 people, but 5,400 across 24 areas were still in the dark.
Right. So that's a verifiable, measurable strategic impact. It's aimed at disrupting civilian life, logistics, right inside Russia, making the war felt at home.
And Ukraine is claiming similar high-value strategic hits on their side, aren't they? Moving beyond just volume.
They are. It seems like a very focused effort on industrial capacity. They claim successful strikes on two really critical targets, far behind Russian lines.
Okay, what were those targets?
First, the Verdov explosives factory. It's in western Russia, a major producer of munitions for the army. There are reports of numerous explosions there.
Knocking out munitions production? That's a long-term strategic goal. It affects supply lines down the road.
Precisely. It's not about immediate battlefield gains. It's about attriting their ability to sustain the fight.
And the second target was aimed at energy again.
Correct. A petroleum terminal down in Feodosia, in Crimea. Reports said a fire started after the attack. They also mentioned hitting a munitions depot in Crimea, too.
So it's systematic targeting. Explosives, fuel, ammo, the sinews of war.
Exactly. This isn't just tit-for-tat shelling. It's about degrading the capacity to wage war.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit to the political fallout and the psychological dimension of all this. Because we saw Dmitry Medvedev pop up again.
Ah, yes, the former Russian president, now deputy chair of the Security Council. He was on Telegram, his usual platform.
And making some pretty provocative comments about drones disrupting air traffic. Where was this? Germany and Denmark.
That's right. And what's fascinating, or maybe chilling, is how he played it. He denied Russia was directly involved in causing those disruptions.
There's always a but with Medvedev.
Always. But then he added this line, and I'm quoting here, "Our agents and sleepers are waiting for a separate order." So he uses the denial to actually amplify the threat. It's quite a tactic.
He wasn't exactly subtle about why he was saying this either. What was his stated goal?
No, not subtle at all. He basically said his main goal was for Europeans to, quote, feel the danger of war on their own skin.
Wow.
And then this really shocking part, quote, fear and tremble like dumb animals in a herd being led to the slaughterhouse.
Good grief. That's incredibly direct.
It is. And he explicitly connects this desired fear to fracturing European unity. He wants the public to turn against leaders like Macron in France and the German chancellor, claiming they are the ones fueling the war for political and financial gain.
So the strategy is clear. So fear, create division, hope for some kind of domestic political revolt in European countries.
Precisely. And speaking of external factors and accusations, while Medvedev is doing this, there was also this claim floating around about China.
Right, the satellite intelligence claim that China was feeding Russia intel.
Yeah. How did Moscow and Beijing respond to that one?
Well, predictably perhaps. The Kremlin, via Peskov, basically said, we don't need China's help. We have our own space capabilities. A flat denial.
And China.
China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs gave a standard response, unaware of the situation, maintaining an impartial stance. So denials all around on that front.
Okay, so Medvedev attacks Macron specifically, and talk about timing, because Macron is facing just an incredible domestic crisis right now. It almost perfectly embodies the kind of political chaos Medvedev seems to be hoping for across Europe.
Yeah, we absolutely have to talk about this political earthquake in France. It's stunning.
It really is, the speed of it. The new prime minister, Sebastian Ledek, he resigned less than 24 hours after announcing his new cabinet.
Less than a day, because of parliamentary criticism.
Immediate, crushing criticism from Parliament. He couldn't even get started. There's got to be some kind of record for instability, even for French politics.
And listeners should know, this isn't just like a one-off bad week. France has burned through 5 prime ministers in under 2 years. 5.
That context is crucial. This instability feels almost chronic at this point. And the root cause.
Political fragmentation.
Exactly. You've got the center, the left, the far right. Nobody can form a stable majority or working consensus. And this paralysis hits hardest when dealing with the massive growing budget crisis.
Let's talk numbers there. National debt over 3 trillion euros. That's about 114% of their GDP.
That's the figure. And you mentioned the connection to instability. Well, the markets reacted instantly and dramatically to Leclerc's resignation.
How badly?
Pretty badly. The French stock exchange dropped almost 2%. Interest rates on French government bonds, basically. The cost for France to borrow money jumped up sharply.
Okay, that's serious.
And the euro fell against the dollar. Plus, major French bank stocks like Sagan and BNP Paribas, they all took a nosedive. It was an immediate economic shockwave.
So let's dig into this a bit because it's important. Why the panic? We've talked before about how Japan has a debt-to-GDP ratio that's way higher, like 252%, but it's generally seen as stable. Why is France's 114% causing such terror in the market?
But the absolute key question here, and the answer tells you a lot about the Eurozone, it's not just the debt level itself. The primary driver of the panic is the political paralysis.
The inability to govern.
Precisely. This volatility prompted the FIT credit rating agency to issue a warning. They explicitly said that political polarization is weakening the government's ability to achieve, and this is their term, substantial fiscal consolidation.
Okay, substantial fiscal consolidation. What does that actually mean in plain English?
It means making the tough choices, cutting spending, maybe raising taxes, basically getting the national finances in order. The political system in France is so fragmented right now, the market doesn't believe they can make those choices.
And why is that different from Japan?
Because Japan has its own central bank, the Bank of Japan. It controls its own currency, the yen. It can manage its borrowing costs much more easily, essentially printing money if needed. France doesn't have that luxury.
Right, because it's part of the Eurozone. It uses the euro, managed by the European Central Bank. It doesn't control its own monetary policy in the same way.
Exactly. France lacks full monetary sovereignty. So when the markets see political gridlock preventing fiscal discipline in France, they worry about the ability and willingness to repay debts within those Eurozone constraints. Japan, despite much higher debt, doesn't face that same kind of market fear because it controls its own financial levers.
So it really boils down to this. The political infighting, the sheer inability to compromise and govern effectively, that's what's spooking the markets far more than the 3 trillion euro number itself.
That's it in a nutshell.
Mhm.
The instability is the core problem in France's current context. It signals a potential systemic failure that rattles investors.
Okay, a really critical insight there. Let's turn now to our final major global flashpoint for today. The escalating U.S. anti-narcotics campaign near Venezuela.
Yeah, this is another area showing a really distinct and frankly quite dangerous escalation. President Trump announced this from a naval station,
What was the announcement?
that U.S. forces had intercepted and hit another vessel carrying drugs near the Venezuelan coast. That's happened before, but the next part was the real shift.
Which was?
He stated that because the traffickers are, allegedly, now avoiding the sea routes due to the U.S. presence, the U.S. is changing its strategy.
How so?
He said the U.S. will now begin actively seeking and hitting targets on land.
On land, inside Venezuela or near it. That's a massive strategic shift.
It is, and making that announcement standing next to an aircraft carrier certainly added symbolic weight. Seeking targets on land dramatically expands the operational scope.
And hugely increases the risk of clashes and international incidents with Caracas, surely.
Absolutely. We also know the Defense Secretary, Pitch Reset, confirmed he has full authorization for these land-based attacks. And he noted that one recent action, presumably under this new authority, reportedly killed 4 people.
4 people killed in a land-based strike. This sounds less like drug interdiction and more like an active, offensive military campaign targeting infrastructure within Venezuela's sphere.
That's certainly how it could be interpreted, and likely how Caracas sees it. It's a significant ratcheting up of pressure.
So how did the Venezuelan government and its allies react to this very clear escalation?
Well, President Maduro immediately took to Telegram, criticizing what he called U.S. aggression and saying his people were ready to defend their freedom. Standard rhetoric, maybe, but he backed it up diplomatically.
How? Who did he reach out to?
His foreign minister, Ivan Gil, spoke directly with Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, and Lavrov apparently expressed Moscow's full support and solidarity with Venezuela.
Okay, so leaning on Moscow. Anywhere else?
Interestingly, yes. Maduro also reportedly sent a letter to Pope Leo X, seeking the Vatican's help to, quote, consolidate peace in Venezuela.
So invoking Russia's geopolitical backing and also making a sort of humanitarian or religious appeal for peace, covering multiple bases.
Exactly, a
Good.
multi-pronged response to what they clearly perceive as a major shift in U.S. policy and a direct threat.
Wow. Okay, so that covers a huge amount of ground today. Intense industrialized warfare in Europe with strategic strikes deep behind lines, deep financial and political chaos shaking the EU's second biggest economy, and now a significant military escalation in the Caribbean.
Yeah, and the key takeaway, I think, for you listening is just how tightly interwoven all these crises are. It's not happening in neat little boxes.
How do you mean?
Well, we saw Russia's Medvedev explicitly trying to weaponize fear, hoping to drive political instability in Europe. And then, almost simultaneously, we see profound political instability erupting in France, not because of Medvedev, but due to its own internal issues causing massive financial chaos.
So volatility in one domain, whether it's military conflict or domestic politics, it just ripples outwards immediately.
Instantly. It has disproportionate impacts elsewhere. Military actions affect political rhetoric, political failures affect financial markets, geopolitical tensions rise. It's all connected.
Which leaves us with a final thought, maybe something provocative for you to consider as you process all this. We saw Medvedev hoping that external fear, from threats and drones, would push European citizens to rebel against their leaders.
Right.
But then you look at the immediate chaos, the economic fallout in France, caused entirely by an internal parliamentary deadlock, a domestic self-inflicted crisis. It really makes you wonder, does that kind of domestic political fragmentation pose a greater, maybe more immediate threat to European stability right now than outright external military action?
That's a really potent question. Is the internal weakness potentially more damaging than the external pressure? Something to definitely chew on as you navigate this very complex global landscape.